The political election has been a main focus on late-night comedy shows.
Gabrielle Ortega is in Studio B with more on the story.
Thank you. I'm Gabrielle Ortega, and I'm here in Studio B with political science professor Tom Hoganesh, and we're going to talk about comedy's influence on the political election this year. Political satires, cartoons, and jokes have existed since the start of media. How has this evolved recently in history?
Yeah, I think the big break is probably television, and I think Saturday Night Live is really the one show that really has taken political satire to an art form. But it becomes interesting when Saturday Night Live begins to drive the news cycle. So these things wouldn't be funny, right, unless they were true, at least to some extent. And so Bill Clinton, as a target of satire in the 1990s, sort of began to drive the narrative about him. Now, he won both elections, but someone more recently, Sarah Palin, I think her brand was harmed by the satire that you saw on Saturday Night Live because it really reinforced some of the negative things about her in terms of her command of the issues and her kind of garbled syntax that she was known for.
And shows like the Daily Show is referred to as fake news. Do you think it can be a confusion to viewers who see that as their only input of?
Yeah, I don't know who would use the term fake news. Maybe critics would, I think. But a lot of what you find on those shows is really quite interesting critique of the political system, and in a lot of ways, the kinds of critiques that you don't actually hear on the 6 o'clock, CBS News, and certainly wouldn't hear it on local news, as they're clearly not following important matters of the day, right? It's focusing a lot on entertainment. But I mean, that's also happened over the last 20 years or so, is that news has become more of a product.
Every week, SNL does a satirical piece on the presidential candidates, and Donald Trump has tweeted last week that media is rigging the election. Do you believe this to be true?
Yeah, I don't think there's any evidence that the media have the ability to rig elections, but as I said earlier, they can drive a certain narrative. Now, you take a candidate like Donald Trump from just a satirical perspective, there's a lot to work with here, and so Trump shouldn't be surprised that Saturday Night Live and other news outlets are satirizing him, and the issue becomes, does that begin to drive a specific narrative in the electorate? And if you want to call that rigging the election, I suppose you could say that, but that's been the case for previous candidates, right? Al Gore lost in 2000, partly because of the way that he was lampooned on Saturday Night Live. But I wouldn't consider that rigging the election. I mean, this is just part of a democratic discussion in the country. And another interesting aspect is why is so much of political satire on the left in this country? And you don't see that many comedians who are conservative. You see a lot of comedians on the left like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert who come from the left. And so I think there's a little bit of a deficit on the right in this country in terms of just trying to be funny. And I think to that extent, they're at a little bit of a disadvantage because they haven't produced the kinds of comedic talent on the right as you have on the left in this news media environment.
Okay, thank you so much for your time and for being here today. This is Professor Tom Hoganesh, and I'm Gabrielle Ortega in Studio B. Back to you.